Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very, very somber episode of ATL Falcons UK. This week, me and Cal are joined by a fair few guests to run through the disaster class that happened yesterday. So I'll let Cal get us started and just see what happens.
Yeah, so obviously our first game of the season, 32-6 loss to the Eagles. Yeah, that's about it. Go there, and that would be yeah, but no. Obviously, a very, very, very disappointing performance. It wasn't even just the result; it was the performance in general. What was poor all over aspects. But we'll start with Miles and then work our way down. Just go for it.
Oh man, yeah, Cal. I think what's the saying? If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Yeah, no, that was probably about as bad of a performance as I think anyone could have even fathomed. And it's sad too because the offense started off so hot in the first drive. I mean, that first drive, I was like, we're gonna like this is it. Like this is what we've been waiting for. Like a running game. You know, Mike Davis, Cordell Patterson looked phenomenal. Keith Smith's blocking. Matt Ryan looks crisp. Ridley's catching the passes. Hurst was getting involved. I was like, oh man, this is exactly what we've been waiting for. Beats this dirt cutter offense, and they get a field goal, and I'm like, okay, like they'll figure it out. That first drive was really good. Second drive was kind of the same. They looked pretty good, but then stalled out in the red zone. I was like, okay, like first two drives, okay, it's the beginning of the game, whatever. The starters haven't played, but good Lord, that just got sad. The offense just, Kyle Pitts was a disappointment. I don't know if that was just they weren't targeting him a lot. I think he had a couple plays where, they did throw it to him and he either dropped it or he, wasn't able to jump for it. One of those two things, and it made it a little bit worse because of how well I think all the other offensive rookies played in week one. Trey Lance got a touchdown. Justin Fields even scored a touchdown. Jamar Chase scored. All these rookies. I think there was a stat that showed today. I think Kyle Pitts was the only offensive rookie in this draft class to not score a touchdown in the first round, which is really disheartening considering all the hype. The first tight end or highest tight end ever drafted. So not a whole lot of good to say about week one here.
We were sold a dream with those first two drives, weren't we? Me and Cal were sat there like, oh my God, this is it. Like, it's just clicked already. We're fine. We're Super Bowl bound. It's done. But no, I agree. It was just, I think that the statistic about Pitts being the only player that didn't score a touchdown is just a kick in the teeth, considering we bought him to have we drafted him to have an instant impact. And it wasn't solely his fault, obviously. It was just a shambles of a performance from everyone, really.
To be fair, we didn't score a touchdown, full stop. Never mind Pitts.
Exactly. Exactly. That comment is probably not far off, right?
I'll take it now.
If it's 40-0, I'll call it a success.
Yeah.
Love it. Liam, do you wanna give it a go?
Yeah, obviously it was highly disappointing apart from that first stint. I expected us to have some sort of obviously period of transition and whatever you want to call it. I thought we'd probably ease ourselves into the game and get better as the game went on, but it actually got worse and worse, which is not really what I was expecting to happen. I'm sort of now thinking obviously we had a big changeover in terms of the roster. We had a lot of new personnel on the field, obviously players who practiced together, but they hadn't played together. And I would imagine maybe Smith is now regretted, and I think he's made a mistake in not putting him into a preseason game as that sort of starting lineup, because we just went with all of the backups for every game, never played together, and then just thrown them in at the deep end for the first game of the season and got absolutely obliterated. Now, we look completely disjointed. We look like a team who had a majority of them hadn't played together. And the fact is we haven't. The practice is practice, isn't it? Even pre-season is pre-season, but still it's better than a practice session. And we just didn't look ready. We were like rabbit in the headlights. And basically, my main concern, I was saying this on the chat, that if this had been the Bucs the first game and they'd have gone and beat us, I wouldn't be that concerned, because I expect them to beat us anyway because they're a much stronger team. But the Eagles are not. They're not a top team in the league this year. I don't expect them to be. They're sort of in a transitional period themselves, obviously with the new coach and their own new QB essentially this year, and that offensive line is only just coming back together. The secondary has always been questionable. They found it so easy, didn't they? I mean, I know we made it easy, but I mean, it was almost embarrassing how easy the Eagles had it. I think Hurts, who's back to his college career, obviously has been known as a running QB with a limited accuracy and a limited arm. He's never been known as a pure passer who's going to dominate you, but he beat us in both. He threw something like 78% completions, 3 touchdowns, 260 yards, or whatever it was. He just had a field day out there, and he's not even a top quarterback in the league yet. He's not even close to it. And I'm just I'm very concerned about what some of the top quarterbacks could do to us. I think if you want a positive, the only one I can really come up with is the running game. Whilst wasn't amazing, it was better than last year. Yeah. That was the main thing. It was an improvement. Patterson looked good. Davis looked good. I think we ran. I don't know. Was it 80 odd yards he got in the end or something like that rushing, which isn't phenomenal. But I mean, I'll take it compared to some of the stuff we had last year.
I think most of it was in the first quarter as well, weren't it?
That's
the issue. That how can you go from 87 yards in the first quarter to, I think, was it -4 in the second part of the game? You're thinking that's like impossible.
Yeah, we from the very start we played this up-tempo style, which I was saying last season is what kept happening last season was we'd go behind and then we'd move to a more up-tempo style, and Matt Ryan would start thriving because he seems to like the higher tempo, getting the ball out quick. We started like that this game, and I was like, oh wow, we're going to play like this. Obviously not every single snap, but we're going to be up-tempo when we can. And then we just completely went away from it, and it made no sense because we were flying in that first quarter, those first couple of drives. We stalled, but we were getting down the field. The defense was all over the place. They had 12 men on the field at times because they couldn't keep up with the pace. And then all of a sudden we just went, we'll go back to doing huddles and slow everything down. And then it all just went downhill from there.
Yeah. Next in line.
If you can take anything away from it, it's that I've always thought the first game of the season has always been a bit of a glorified preseason, and that's basically the lie that I've been telling myself for the last 4 years. I only found out yesterday that the Browns hadn't won an opening game of the season for like 15 years or something, which is like, imagine that. But there really isn't a lot. What sucks more so than the offensive output was the amount of penalties. Yeah. I appreciate that the Eagles had more than us, but the ones that we had across the game just put us in a really awful position constantly. The second field goal, we were at their 2-yard line at one point and just got backed up to their 20. In pass interference calls on like veterans at this point, Ridley and Hurst. It's just kind of like Mike Davis. Yeah. It's just kind of like Arthur Smith said after the game that this isn't what's going to define our season, and I buy that. I agree with that, and this Falcons team will be better. I'm going to be the positive one this week. This Falcons team will be better, but some of the elements from this game are going to define the Falcons if they don't sort it in the next week. Penalties being the main one. That offensive line just needs
Matt Ryan's gonna die.
Yesterday I thought he had done. That picture that's gone viral of him face first on the floor, I was like, oh my god, it's over for him.
Well, like 5 minutes before the end, I flicked it off. I was like, I know what's happening here. It's not going to happen. I'll just put on Red Zone or whatever. And I just checked Twitter, and Tori McElhaney's tweeted, I genuinely fear for Matt Ryan's life at this point. Something's gone wrong. And that's he's had to deal with bad offensive lines basically his whole career. Like the one time we had a good one, we went nearly all the way, but it's bad, and I don't quite know how much better it can get in the next week. It's going to be rough this weekend. this coming weekend, and maybe we need to adjust our expectations for the season accordingly.
Yeah.
But this isn't a great platform to start off.
Without digging anyone out, because of course the O-line itself was a shambles and we don't want to talk about it. I read the stat earlier that Mayfield's PFF score was 1.4, which for me is the lowest I've ever seen. And I'm not judging him off that. I'm going to be right behind him for the rest of the season, as we should. But Jesus, like that is a blow to your confidence of whatever little he had left anyway after the game. Seeing that afterwards must just be like a kick in the teeth.
Yeah, for me with him, I think it's a bit. I did say, like, I know a lot of people have weighed into him, but I think the one thing we've got to take from it is he's a rookie for starters. Yeah. He's not a first round pick anyway. He wasn't ready. No, he's been he played at tackle in college. Obviously, he got moved to guard. He's been thrown into guard position. He's a rookie, and he got put up against Fletcher Cox and the like, who pretty much spend their entire life dominating anybody who's in front of them, never mind a rookie. So I'm not going to judge him on this one.
Oh no,
because that was one hell of a baptism into the league. Obviously, again next week, to be honest, it's probably not going to get any better because we're up against some pretty good ones again. Maybe even better than the Eagles right now, possibly. I think when he comes up against somebody who's a bit more middle of the park, maybe a lower end deep tackle that he has to come up with. If he's really struggling there, then I'm going to be concerned.
Do you all see him starting next week still? Because there's a lot of shouts, not just because people are angry, but there's a lot of shouts for his confidence levels as well, to take him out of the limelight a little bit, to maybe let him reassess and refocus, have a few weeks of training. Do you reckon that's a viable option?
I kind of feel like you have to, simply because it can't get much worse. Taking him out would probably do more to hurt his confidence now than it would be if you kind of left it. They can probably, I mean, the rationale will be, it's his first game, it's our first game, it'll be better as a result of any sort of chemistry. I don't think he will be much better. Again, 1.4 was it out of 100? Yeah. You can't get much worse. But I feel like they'll stick with him on the basis that it would probably destroy him for this season if they didn't.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
I don't think who we're going to put in. I mean, Dolman's another rookie. He's undersized. He's going to get absolutely obliterated as well. So it's like we just don't have an option. I mean, Andrews was supposed to be the one that's starting, isn't it? Not that he was going to be any saving grace for us, but I mean, he's at least experienced, so he probably would have put up a better fight. But it is what it is. I mean, I don't expect sort of your mid-round rookies to be amazing first go anyway, but it was worse than I anticipated. I thought it was going to be bad because of who he's up against, but I didn't quite anticipate it'd be that bad.
Yeah. I'm trying to find a different path to go down a little bit to brighten us up, but I think we're stuck in a bit of a rut at the moment. So if we move on to the offense a little bit, after barring the first two drives, what do you all think went wrong? I know earlier, Liam, you said we slowed it right down, which doesn't cater to Matt necessarily. But
did we actually get past the 50 after our first two drives, or that? Like, I can't remember getting past the last three quarters. We get past our own 50, and obviously the penalties, like Willow Thomas said, you've put in, was it 100 yards? I think it was, on 97 yards. It worked out as, but every time, even their kicking was decent. They put us in our 10 most of the time, but when you're getting a penalty straight away, you're putting us back into our own 5, and that happened 3 or 4 times. And obviously, it's your offense's job to take control of that, but obviously, it just didn't. It's like, I think there was a few calls that even I think we ran it 4 times.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't want to slag off Smith already. Like, even put a tweet about that. I'm not slagging him off. Like, he's obviously done it for a reason, but even that was a bit questionable straight away.
We ran it on a 2nd and 20, didn't we? And then got like 4 yards, and then obviously Matt's at like 3 and 16, and having to like I can understand he's trying to come up with this little surprise run because nobody runs it on 2nd and 20 usually. And I think we ran it on like 3rd and long as well at one point, which actually works out for us with Patterson, I think, at one point. But I know he's maybe trying to be smart and sneaky about it, but just throw the ball. Like, you're 2nd and 20, just throw the ball, get 10 yards, 3rd down, 3rd and 10, get another 10. That's the way everybody does it. And they do it like that for a reason. But he's tried to be smart, and then we've come up incredibly short. And he'll learn. It's the first time. Well, it's not first time offensive call, play caller, to be honest. I can't remember if he was doing things like that at Tennessee, whether they were running it on 3rd downs and running it on 2nd and long. I can't remember. Maybe they were, but they had Derrick Henry, who usually gets you out of a few pickles anyway. But I don't know. It's interesting. He'll learn from it.
When I was watching the offense, I think the big part of it, I know we were talking about the run game. I think they just abandoned the run game for, and it's hard to really, to blame them at certain points, given that they were falling behind a little bit and you sort of had to score quickly. But, they did kind of abandon it at one point, even though it was probably one of the low spots on the team because Matt wasn't getting any time and Cordell Patterson and Mike Davis were doing something positive with the ball at certain points. But you add into that, and I think the factor of, again, I don't know if you guys saw it. To me, it looked like the offense sort of just gave up in the 3rd quarter. It was almost like a vibe, like just the way they were out there, running, and maybe it was abandoning that quick pace, quick stuff they were running at the beginning that made it seem that way. But to me, it just looked like they were lifeless a little bit. Like it just looked like they had their wings chipped off a little bit. They were just kind of discouraged coming out there in the second half, and again, maybe that was because of the offensive line play. Just the fact that they weren't winning the line of scrimmage whatsoever, and again, those penalties were just killing them. Again, there were 2 plays I can point out, and you mentioned them, that, it looked like they were finally going to generate something. There was the Mike Davis throw where I think it was Ridley that got the holding penalty or the pass interference penalty. Then I think there was another one where, I don't know if maybe it was Hayden Hurst that first down that Kyle Pitts got. And it was just stuff like that. It just kept adding up. It just sucked the life out of the offense after you get a big game. I think there was one drive they started inside their own 20 a lot. Credit to the Eagles with some really good punts that they had. But there were a few times where they got out of that run. They looked like they were getting the midfield, and just the penalties took them all the way back to the 15, inside the 20 again. They were just sort of stuck in limbo there for the entire game. But to me, it looked like they just got the life out of them as the game sort of wore on.
The thing that did me in the most was we looked ambitious at the start, and that's fine. But once it started to go wrong, we lay down and rolled over like we did all last season, all the season before. And I thought that, if anything, was going to be one of the key things that we'd see a change in this year. I thought, obviously, there's a change in playbook and everything, but things like that take a while to embed. But I thought the mentality would at least be refreshed because you've got a new coach, you're trying to impress him, you're re-fighting for your position in the team. And there was just nothing from anyone on both sides of the ball, really. There was very, very few players that I'd say put in a performance where you can hold your head up after it. Very few.
I think if I'm gonna stick up for the offense a little bit, some of that, I think you've got to give a bit of credit to the Eagles and the way that they adjusted to those first 2 drives. It felt like there was a concentrated effort to just keep everything in front of them and thus limit Ridley's first catch was 16 yards, something like that. I think that was the longest play of the game for us. The moment that we did that, they just kind of went, all right, we're not doing that again, and we just didn't have an answer for that. Again, that's something that will come over the course of the season as they get used to this whole. Because let's be fair, this is a pretty big upheaval for a lot of these players to go from. It's just a whole new regime. I tweeted it earlier. It's just kind of like, it's not going to be perfect immediately. It probably won't be perfect ever, but it'll be better. But the fact of the matter is, the Eagles did a really good job of adjusting to keeping everything in front of them and thus limiting what went over the top. And we just didn't have an answer for that. And that's a worry in 4 weeks' time. But week 1, I'm willing to let it slide a bit on the basis that everyone... we were caught cold, and it sucks because losing sucks. But it will come. We just didn't have an answer for defense as a whole. They're probably not as good as we made them look, and they will. I don't know who they've got next week, but they'll probably lose. The fact of the matter is, I don't think we're a particularly good team, or certainly not as good as I hoped we would be. That's a sobering thing to admit, but it is what it is, and hopefully they can adjust to it next week somehow.
Yeah.
I think we
think
got
one of those-
out-coached, didn't we? Definitely got out-coached. I'll be willing to go on record and say that they absolutely out-coached us. Falcons.
No, I mean,
I'm not
Sandwich.
Sandwich. Is that is that an American thing?
I don't know.
I've never heard that term before.
I don't know, but it's incredible. It's incredible.
I don't know what a sandwich is, but we probably are one. I would imagine we are one.
I think one of the moments in the game was, I think they had the ball. We got the ball back in the second quarter. I don't know if we had like 3 minutes on the clock. And you're thinking, we could use this 3 minutes, and even if you get 3 points off it. And I think they got the ball back after a minute, and then they went and scored a touchdown at the end. It's like, I think that's a big part of the game. I know you still got another complete half to go, but when you know they've starting with the ball in the second half, and you're giving them the ball back with 2 minutes to go again, it's one of them things where you're thinking that was our sort of chance to, even if you put another 3 points on the board, to then start the half. But
it was relentless for the defense. It was relentless. The offense could not stay on the field for a significant amount of time to even give them a break. And I feel like we were saying this last year as well, but kind of reversed a lot of the time. So it's just, we're in tatters at the moment.
So I think the defense I think said this to Danny because we watched it together. I said the defense were bad at times, but they weren't awful. I think it was because they were on the pitch so much, because the offense didn't give them any time. It was one of them where at times he looked decent. Some of the stops he did, obviously. Now by the end, they obviously, if you're getting battered constantly, it is what it is. If you go always on the pitch, it is one of them.
Yeah, they were the better part of the team, which I'm surprised that we're not. I normally would definitely wouldn't have anticipated that our defense was going to be better than the offense at this point. I would have expected, with Pitts and everybody, that we just struggled in the complete opposite area, which I don't know if that's really concerning to me or not, because I kind of hope maybe not, because maybe they found, I think hopefully it's easier for us to get the offense to click than it is the defense.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, one of the things that surprised me in preseason was just how excited people were by the defense versus the AJ McCarron, Felipe Franks experience, and that's kind of translated into. I mean, obviously it's only the first week, but like 30. What was it in the end? 32-6. That's a preseason score. And we've come away having conceded 32 points going, the defense was actually pretty okay. It's just like, maybe that's just kind of who we were supposed to be at this point. Because the offense looked pretty rubbish during preseason as well. Yeah.
I think going back to Pitts as well, like some of the tweets that Miles must have seen going through, and we see, I think everyone's seen a lot of them, like, why have we drafted him? Like, he was awful. But the times when he caught the ball, you think, fucking hell, he can run. And I think when it does happen, he will click. It's obviously the first game. And him and Ryan will have, I think, a good partnership this year. But when he does get the ball, I won't want to be trying to stop him at times, because he'll be able to pick yards up quickly.
He'll be fine and will be fine. It's just one of those things. We were hoping for a fast start off the mark, new coach, new players and everything. And we thought we were just going to go out all guns blazing. Whereas in reality, we've kind of just stumbled into the season like we have for the last few years. So it's not that much of a shock, but I still anticipate us to push for an even wins and losses, to be completely honest with you. I'm not saying we're going to end up with anything over a positive season, but if we can get around the 7 mark or something along those lines, then I think, to be fair, as long as we've seen an improvement on the field, we'd probably be pretty satisfied, even though it sounds terrible.
I think one positive thing that can be taken from the defense, to be a little Mr. Positive here, even though I think the defense was just atrocious in this game, was I think you take away maybe a mobile quarterback, there's a lot more sacks in that game. there was a lot of times where it looked like, Hurts was, there was a clear shot to the quarterback. We had a guy coming in completely unblocked, and Hurts, just because of his mobility, was able to, escape some of these looks and just out juke, frankly, some of these guys that were coming in. So, will I say that Tom Brady's going to get sacked 5 times? Absolutely not. But I think there were a lot of sacks left on the field for, a less mobile quarterback that, otherwise may have happened. And let's be honest, I think there were a couple times, the scoreboard obviously said otherwise. I'm not defending the defense here, but there were a lot of times where the defense was keeping the offense in it. They were like, all right, we made a stop here, go out and score. It's still a 1-possession game. It's still a 2-possession game. Like, we made the stop here. Now go score so we can stay in this game. So, I mean, it for me, to summarize it up a little bit, I think there's the main issue with this team is there's a personnel issue. I think the line of scrimmage is just so not deep at this point. The offensive line, it's been the story of Matt Ryan's career, as you've been saying earlier. It's just, if you don't win the line of scrimmage, you're not going to win a lot of games. Yeah. I don't care how many sexy targets you have on the outside, whether it's, the unicorn or Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage, Hayden Hurst, all these first-round picks. They're not going to get the ball if your quarterback comes back. So, and then the defensive line, you can't rely on Grady Jarrett to do everything. And honestly, I think that Dave Fowler's jersey changed to number 6 is sort of a metaphor for how many sacks he might get this year, because I don't know,
yeah, he's been lucky.
That's depressing.
I think one of the videos where I've seen him, someone absolutely slaughtered him, and it was like a slow motion, and it was obviously when Hurts got away. But it was one where he probably should have got him. And like Miles said, like Brady next week, I know he's about 50 years old, but he's got better feet than some of the quarterbacks. But if we have to get them chances next week, I think there will be a couple of sacks from us without a doubt. But it's just then it's the other side of the ball.
Well, let's move on to next week then. We've got 1 week to heavily improve what we saw yesterday. Where do you start? What's the one thing that you absolutely have to change?
100 laps around the field would be the first one. Just for the amount of penalties.
Oh, God.
So
I say maybe have the offensive line run laps until they're gassed. Just finish them until they know how to block anything. That's a start.
Yeah, getting the basics right would be a bonus, wouldn't it? So yeah. Accountability and all that. He says he's full of influence in the accountability. So let's see how much it actually changes and actually affects the game, because I could only picture what Smith would be like at halftime of that game last night. So after watching the full thing, I can only imagine he's absolutely ended all of them. What have we got?
I wouldn't be at all surprised if, for the vast majority of next week, they've got a fullback in there just to add an extra person to block. Whoever plays at left guard, if it's Mayfield. What's that, sorry?
So he played well too. I thought Keith Smith was a bright spot too.
He was all right. Yeah, he was all right. A little bit of a bright spark.
As little as it can be, but it was
tiny.
I think that's a good point what Thomas made, to be fair. I think we know what their defense probably is better than the Eagles, and I think it could be another. So it's going to be a brutal loss, I can think. But if we see positives from last week, if Mayfield, like I said, I think he does. He probably will have to start, because if his confidence is lower than low, there's no point removing him from the whole game itself. And if he knows he's got to prove something this week, and he knows he's a rookie, and everyone knows he's a rookie. But if he goes and hits a 15 out of 100, it's an improvement.
Well, to be fair, 1.4 out of 100 is writing your name on an exam paper and then walking out of the room. So it cannot get worse.
Yeah, I think whoever left guard's going to beat up.
Yeah. Go on, Miles.
I will say, how typical of the Falcons would it be for them to, be right in this game up until the very end and just get our expectations that much higher, and then come crashing down week 3.
Yeah. That would be true.
All I want and all I expect now is to us to find a little bit of form before they come over to London. Because if I have to sit in a stadium and watch what we just watched yesterday, I want a refund. I want money back because that's a shambles.
I think that's the only positive, that it is the Jets that we are playing, and we know. I know they got beat yesterday, didn't they? But it can't be.
Kept it close.
I know.
Closer.
Can you make it Zach Wilson look like Patrick Mahomes up there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's like what Miles said. Then if the game is close and then we end up losing it in the last few minutes, the last quarter, the fan base would still rip the shit out of them. So it's like you can't. And the team won't be able to win anyway. The only way the team wins next week is actually winning the game. Like for us, if we keep it competitive and we lose near the end, at least you're going from getting battered, but at least you might, if you're keeping it competitive, it's better.
Imagine we travel all the way down to London. We have a hotel for 2 nights. That again, one of the only bright sparks. He only had a couple of opportunities and he did all he could with what little was provided to him. So highest scorer again this season, comfortably, no doubt about that.
It's definitely gonna be. It's a 9 o'clock kickoff, isn't it? Which is obviously slightly late.
Oh, is it next time? Yeah.
Which is probably better
It was nice to see Julio Jones have just 3 catches yesterday.
It was.
Yeah. Bittersweet.
Fraud.
Taking anything.
Bittersweet. Isn't it bad that we're pulling out any little bit of joy out of anything around the NFL?
This is the positive for next week. 9 p.m. kickoff means I can literally go bed straight away. There's no reason to stay up.
Half time.
Right, so we've not pulled much positivity as I was aiming for, but that's kind of expected. Has anyone else got any talking points you want to jump into before we call it tonight? Because we will probably struggle and we'll just keep going round in circles if not. Anything?
I will say if there's no improvement, Dean Peace will be going right back to retirement by week 6.
Somebody tweeted last night, I'm surprised he's not retired at half time when he's seen the performance. So, oh, God.
Yeah. Do you think I can't see it. Well, I can't see us bringing anyone in because I don't think there is anyone. But if the left guard is then the same problem for next week, do you think anyone will come in?
I think they need to. I mean, the only thing holding them back at this point will be the salary cap, which, again, I think is the biggest reason why this team is struggling so much personnel-wise. But I think at this point, there's an argument they can do it today. I mean, it was that bad. So, also, we forget about Matt Gano. I mean, we're talking about Josh Andrews, but Matt Gano was another guy who was expected to start on this offensive line, but Josh Andrews and Gano were taken out by injuries. So I think these guys are sort of getting baptism by fire a little bit.
Yeah, we'd have to give Dolman a go. I think. I mean, if they are going to take Mayfield out, or we put Dolman in at centre and slide Hennessy out to guard. I think that's the only other alternative. I mean, I don't know how many snaps Dolman played at guard yesterday. He did play some in that first quarter. Yeah, I don't know how he performed, but.
He was second on our PFF offensive players. I think it was 68.2 or something. I don't know how many snaps he played, but that seems pretty right to me.
Yeah, I maybe throw him in. But I don't know. I think he's in theory, since he's a centre, he's more suited to guard than Mayfield is anywhere. But Mayfield, I guess, he's built like an NFL guard rather than where he was more of a college tackle. So I guess I know why they've done it, but. Yeah, it's one of them. I think you could put Dolman in and roll with him, and that Mayfield will lose all his confidence. So you could try Mayfield again, and it could go bad. It could be better.
I suppose it's just going to have to be trial and error, isn't it? Seeing as nobody's settled immediately, we're just going to have to mess about. And I know we said we wanted a solid line with people being in the positions religiously and not having to chop and change. But if you can't find the right formula, you're just going to have to chop and change until you get the formula right. So realistically, it's going to be in week 5 or something before we even have a Scooby-Doo of how close we are to being accurate.
I did say in the show we did before the game, I think AJ would probably have a decent game, and I think he did all right in the end. I think it was one of the small bright sparks again from the game.
Yes.
That's my win from the whole game.
Everyone there was players that had moments, but there was just not enough. There was more negative ones than good ones. Like Moreau had a few good moments, but then he also had an absolute shambles for their first touchdown, just getting blocked by a really clear and obvious play. So I don't
Can
know.
we speak about Grady's speed though when he chased?
Oh yeah,
Holy shit!
he's terrifying.
If I was hurt, I would have been kept running. I'm surprised. I'm surprised he just didn't take the loss straight away, because the speed that he can pick up is phenomenal, and it's an absolute shame that he is surrounded by like below average players at times, and he is unreal at times, and it's like he must look around and think, I can't really do much else. Like, what do you want else to do?
Yeah. Jake Matthews had a blocking rating of 80.9, so at least, I suppose so.
Matthews will do a job all season, the same job he's always done. He's never going to. He's not spectacular, but he's good enough to play that position, and he's no issue. It's the rest of it.
If we had 5 steady players, we'd be in a much better condition than we are at the moment in time. So you'd take 5 Matthews at the moment, to be fair.
You definitely would.
What about McGarry, Liam? I think you mentioned him on the chat.
I don't know. He's not. No, he's done for me. I didn't like him to begin with. Never mind now. But to be honest, I'm actually judging him on the fact that he was a first round pick. I think if he was a fourth round pick, and playing like he was, I wouldn't be as concerned. But the fact we blasted a first on him is not good. I don't think he stays with us, to be honest. I think he's heading out the door eventually I don't think we'll take his 5th-year option, and that'll be it.
Unless something serious happens this season, you're probably right. Over the body of his career so far hasn't suggested that he's capable of being a good starter sort of long term. He's had some moments, but you need more than moments to, like you just said about Jake Matthews. He does the same job he's done from day one. McGarry hasn't done the job really.
He just looks like Bambi on ice. He does, like, he gets, because he's a big lad, isn't he? He's like, I can't remember how tall he is. He's pretty tall, and any speed rusher just goes right around the outside of him every single time.
It's just so sad. I came here ready to try and this just sucks so much.
The reason for us doing this show so early is so after we've got this conversation out of the way, we can just look to next week and pretend that this never happened, because normally we'd leave it a couple more days, but I did not want to let it resonate with us any longer than it has done.
Yeah, the earlier you do it, the better. But the one positive, like it was Patterson when he made them runs, and I think
Patterson looked good.
He looked like he for a big guy. I think, fuck me, he's getting good therapy.
We'll write a self-help book as the season goes on. Don't worry about it. It'll be published next season.
If we becoming like Arsenal fan TV, we'll be getting that many views, getting paid for it. The amount of slander.
I know the views doubled about 5 minutes ago, and it was when our faces were all really, really sad. And I can guarantee that only about 5 of them were Falcons fans, and the rest were definitely not looking at Twitter.
If we're going to take one thing like from this week, it's that I've been watching this team for 12 years, and I think they've lost as many as they've won, and that's never really reflected how they've been that season, last season. Apart from last season, it's never really reflected how they are. So fingers crossed it's just pre-season 4 and we can go again next week. The extra game, I think, will be a benefit in this scenario. So let's cling on to that. Next week when it's all coming together.
Yeah, I've left this comment on the screen for so long because is he alive? It remains to be seen. I've not heard from him since, so I don't know. Not got a clue. He's flat as a pancake, if you ask me.
If it comes, I'm sticking with Miles's comment. Like, if we end up winning next week, I'm keeping. I'm gonna have to screenshot his comments because if we win, it's gonna be the fan base will still look for negatives in it, but either way, I'm excited for the next game. I'm always going to be slightly excited for every game because obviously the season's so short for us. Well, so short anyway for the last couple of years. Me and Danny have been watching anyway, so you've got to go into it like I'm not expecting a win, but let's be honest, we didn't expect to be even.
That's the best way to go into a game, though. No expectations.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the problem is the pre-game show that we did very, very briefly yesterday. We did 20 minutes, and every single me and Cal didn't give our predictions. Every single person, Falcons win, and a clear Falcons win, and that's where we set it up wrong.
Hey, what's doing?
That was the problem.
He must have shown that to the team before the game. Who was watching it?
Yeah. Right, boys. Just before we wrap it up, Miles, how is life at Fox treating you? Just out of curiosity. Since you moved?
It's good, man. Yeah. The shows have been really keeping us busy. We have 3 Falcon shows in addition to our daily newscast. So it's a grind. We had Mike Vick on last week, which is pretty cool. We did some
very jealous
interviews with him. Yeah, no, it was pretty exciting. This week we'll have Chipper Jones to talk Falcons with us, which will be exciting as well. Former Braves player, but. It's been cool. I mean, we're kind of been hamstrung a little bit going forward with some travel stuff in regards to the pandemic. So we still have some stuff up in the air as far as what games we can go to, what games we can't go to. But hopefully that'll figure itself out, especially in about a month's time.
Perfect. Just thought I'd check in. Obviously, it's a big move for you, and we get to see a lot more of you now with you basically being plastered all over social media everywhere and your own shows and everything.
It's a lot of talk Falcons. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Considering some of the tweets yesterday, like Danny said at the start of the show, was like we thought it was going to be like very neutral. So if we go like 0-6, I could see Miles absolutely exploding.
Hey, no, we need you guys to post some memes during game day. Remember, like firm but fair, I'm
going to be honest, Miles. I don't think you'd be able to post our kind of memes, so we'll take it as it comes.
Yeah, I want to get it on the show somehow.
We'll do our best next week. We'll think of some PC memes that we can use. So
perfect.
We'll see how it goes.
I really appreciate it.
It's all right. Right, lads. Thank you all for coming on. I will not make you suffer any longer. We've all suffered enough last night and all of today. So we'll wrap it up and just hope that next week's a much better one. We might try and do a little pre-game show before the Bucs game, but we will take it as it comes because if we don't have a positive feeling by then, I'm not putting myself through people saying predictions of 60-0 and things like that. I'm just not here for it. But thank you everyone for watching. Thank you all for your comments. And I've seen one about Aaron Rodgers not wanting to be there. He definitely doesn't want to be there. That was obvious as anything. But that's definitely one for another show. We'll pick up on that. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Thanks lads for coming on. And we will see you all next week, if not sooner. Ta.